Now, as a farm kid, I still do a lot of the things I just grew up on the farm doing. So when I first heard about urban homesteading, like, what's that all about? And someone told me, like, oh, that's the lifestyle that I live. And for me, I actually grew up on cow milk. We truly had our farm milk cow, and all of us kids, it was a rite of passage as far as who's next in line to start milking a cow. And at the time, I had no idea or the concept of what raw milk was. To us, it was simply milk. Now, we did have a milk separator, so every time we milked, the milk went into the separator, and cream came out of one spout, milk came out of the other. And we use that for all of our food, for beverages, you name it, we made it. And now that I'm living in a city, it is far much harder for me to get my hands on, say, fresh from the cow milk. So before I start, let me ask, how many cheesemakers or hope-to-be cheesemakers do we have in the crowd? Awesome. Well, let me tell you, if I can do this living in a city, you all can do that. So don't ever let anyone tell you that you cannot source your own milk and that you can't make your own cheese. So here are the basic sources we're going to have available as milk for you. So first off, the main basic one, grocery store. Pretty much everyone has access to a grocery store. Your milk in a grocery store is typically going to be pasteurized unless you live in a state where raw milk is legal. Now, in a grocery store, not only do you have milk availability, but you're going to have different, I'll call them processes. You're going to have all the way from skim on up to whole milk. Next, we get into herd shares. Now, for those of you that live in a raw milk illegal state, such as I do, I'm out in Colorado, herd share is my option if I choose to have access to raw milk. Another item available is called a pet share. That is also available to those who live in states where raw is illegal. You have local dairies. Now, a lot of dairies, they'll have a retail storefront, so you can buy directly through them. But if they are in an illegal raw milk state, their milk will have to be pasteurized in order to sell it to you. And then lastly, your other option is to get your own dairy animal, whether it be cow or goat. So as I began to allude to, in grocery stores, you're going to have skim all the way through cream top. So during months when I am not able to have access to raw milk, when I go to the grocery store, I will get cream top. And what that means is that you have your whole milk, but you're going to have a nice thick line of cream that is truly floating on top of. Now, I do know some people, and let me just tell you here, that cream is perfectly fine to use because some people, if they've never seen cream top milk before, they think the milk has gone bad, that it's spoiled. And that's stuff on top, that's where it's spoiled. No, don't throw that away. Cream is liquid gold. Benefits, though, of buying in a store, it is available year-round. Your quality is consistent. And then it tends to be, actually, it's almost always less expensive than if you're buying directly from the dairy, whether it's pasteurized, pet share, or herd share. Again, very easy access for that. Herd share. Now, herd share is what's available to me in Colorado. And what that is, it's a loophole in the legislation that allows people to buy, or I should say, you're not technically buying the milk. What you are doing, you are paying an amount to help support feed and upkeep of that animal, whether it be cow, whether it be goat. And I do both. I do both cow share and goat share for my milk source. However, let me tell you that regulations do vary by state. So if you're curious as far as what your state offers, check with your state's Department of Agriculture. They will list that out. And for me, the biggest benefit is definitely that it is wellness. You're going to have all the natural bacteria that's in there. Oh, forgot to add, with herd shares, again, this is going to vary by state, but besides having access to the raw milk, you may be able to get raw butter and raw cream for them as well. So that is an option, but again, that definitely varies by state. Now in Colorado, as an example, I cannot get raw butter, raw cream, but since I'm getting the raw milk, it's going to have its own cream in it, so I'm still able to make butter out of that. Pet shares. Now this is really interesting because, again, it's for a state where raw is illegal. So the dairymen actually have to label on the container that the milk is sold for pet consumption. Local dairies. When we travel, we will seek out local dairies, and because we always like to stay in a place that has a kitchen, we can make our own meals, and typically meals are not complete without us making our own cheese and or butter as we travel. So there's a lot of options within your dairies, and again, if they're in a state where raw is illegal, and if they have a retail front, it is going to be a pasteurized product. Nothing wrong with it, but the pasteurization process does kill off the natural bacteria that are in the milk. Now, as far as options within a local dairy, some of them offer home delivery, which and here's a map. I wish I was able to blow it up bigger, but not my map. I got this at farmtoconsumer.org. And so this breaks down by state what is each state as far as if they're herd share, pet share, illegal, period. Some states you cannot, even through a pet share or herd share, you cannot get your hands on raw milk at all. But if you're curious to see a bigger image of this, it is available at farmtoconsumer.org. Within your state, again, if you're uncertain, or if you forget the name of farmtoconsumer.org, not only is your state's Department of Agriculture going to list out what's available when it comes to milk/dairy, but also you can also check with your state public health and environmental department. Now, in the world of milk, there's A1 and A2. And some people will ask, well, why does that matter? And the main reason right there, it is how your body processes that milk. Now, both are perfectly fine for drinking, but as you can see, A1, what it is currently associated with. And I am fortunate that I have a few friends in the dairy industry that were able to give me a little more information as far as A1, so proteins. However, the A1, it mutated. And that mutation is what is then associated with the potential health issues and intolerances that are there. How much has it been store-bought? Ooh, we got okay. And then how many have had raw? All right, of those that have had raw, how many thought it was a goat milk? Find a different dairyman. That's all I can say right there. Find a different dairyman. Cleanliness and having the buck too close definitely impacts the flavor of the milk. In the world of goat milk, it's known as being bucky. You do not want a bucky milk, because even if you decide to turn that milk into cheese, you end up with a really bucky cheese. And that people wonder, well, what can I do with goat milk? Because for a lot of people, goat milk means shed. Okay, yes, you can make shed out of goat milk. You can't make shed out of cow milk. But what cow and goat have together, and this is just a sampling of the list. I mean, look at that. You can do mozzarella, ricotta, paneer, ice cream, butter, cottage cheese, yogurt, all equally tasty. And again, if you have a great source for your goat milk, you're not going to be able to, you don't taste a goaty taste. It's going to taste like ice cream. It's going to milk. And again, you can source your milk from any of the places that were previously listed. There is no such thing as the cheese police. They're not going to stop and fire cows to say, put down that gallon of 2% and go get yourself a drop. No, that will not happen. Culture is what puts bacteria back into the milk. It's really important, especially if you're using grocery store milk. But culture, I also use that in my raw milk because culture helps impart a flavor that is unique to particular types of cheese. It's considered a low temperature cheese. Thermophilic is high. So when I do cheeses, common ones are like Havarti, even doing that. And your classic high temperature cheeses are Parmesan and Romano. So those cultures can survive based upon those temperature requirements. Continuing on, you have a coagulant, and all that means is that it's a clotting agent. It causes the milk proteins to bind together. Common ones are rennet, there's vinegar and citric acid, and in a pinch I have been known to use lemon juice. That works equally well in that regard. Salt. A lot of places say salt is optional. Me, I'm a fan of salt because, especially if I'm doing a fresh cheese, and if I don't add salt, to me it takes on more of a milk taste. But when I add that little bit of salt based upon the recipe, it just elevates that flavor and it goes from milky to cheese. So this tends to be more of an optional ingredient. However, what I have found out, especially if I'm doing grocery store milk, is using some calcium chloride in that because of the bottom item. Calcium chloride can help produce a firmer bird set. An expensive or fancy setup to make cheese at home. Actually, for the first couple of years, I just used what I had available in my kitchen. So a cooktop. It doesn't matter. It can be gas. It can be electric. I do a lot of cheese making workshops, so I have a little induction cooktop that I take around, and I can make perfectly fine cheese with that. Slotted spoon. You have a slotted spoon, so when you scoop the curd out, you want the whey to be able to start draining through that spoon. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you have whey that gets transferred over into the colander when you're draining. It just means it's going to take a longer time to drain, is all. Thermometer, this is essential, especially if you're doing a cheese that's highly dependent upon the temperature. You want to be very good about monitoring the temperature. A long knife. And by a long knife, I don't mean your steak knife or dinner knife. I'm talking something that is going to be about the same length as the height of the pot that you're making your cheese in. Because when your curd sets, you want to be able to stick your knife into the curd and you're going to cut a grid pattern. It's going to be your basic step-by-step instructions of how to make cheese. First one, warm your milk. And you know what? I have a hint. So to kickstart this, if my milk is in the fridge, I set it out in advance, about a half an hour before I'm ready to make cheese, just to let it start coming up to room temperature. Don't worry, your milk is not going to spoil in that amount of time, so it's perfectly acceptable to do that. If you have any additives, such as calcium chloride, and calcium chloride would be added after you begin to warm your milk. Not take the milk up to its final temperature, but when you begin to warm it up. This is the point you add your calcium chloride. Once your calcium chloride is in, typically you let it warm just a little bit more. If you have a starter culture, that is when it is added. Rennet, or your other coagulating agent, is then added, and sometimes I'll even put the rennet and the culture in together at the same time. But typically for best results, put the culture in, let that set for a few minutes, and then about 5 minutes later, then I add whatever coagulant that I'm using. And then recipes should indicate about how long you're going to let both the coagulant and the culture work in time for curd set. Now, in some cases, some of your cheeses, you're going to see curd set begin to happen almost as soon as you add your rennet. It's almost like magic watching that happen. Next step, once your curds are at the desired consistency, then you'll want, if you can, a firmer curd. So you're going to cut the curd. And if you are doing a cheese where you need to heat the curd, it's all dependent, again, type of cheese that you're making, whether or not you heat the curd. So in the world of chef, you don't heat the curd up at all. Once the curd is set, you're done. You cut it, you drain it, and then you have cheese. In other cheeses, say such as ricotta, I'm going to drain that curd to the desired consistency. Now, if I'm doing something where I'm going to do like stuffed shells, I drain my ricotta a little bit longer because I want a cheese that's not necessarily toothsome, but I just don't want it to be mushy when, I bake the final product. This is important after you add, or after you drain your curds to the desired consistency. This is when you go ahead and do any add-ins, such as your herbs or spices that are there. If you add them before draining, you might lose some of that in the draining process. So, previous steps, follow those, put the curd into the mold, and what this does, it allows it to drain and the curds get together. So after the draining, or this process where they've been in the mold for a couple of days, I take it out, and I just have that beautiful log shape that holds together. And then finally, you have hard cheese, and hard cheese is definitely different than a firm cheese. So think of a Chev log as firm, and Parmesan as being one of your classic hard cheeses. So again, you're going to follow all the previous steps, but now to make it a hard cheese, pressing is involved. Now we've made our own cheese press. We can do that, but some people just go old school, and they stack like cans of products on top of the cheese just to further press out any moisture, any weight out of the cheese. And what that enables is that the cheese will age beautifully and it will not get moldy or leaky. Flow, so if you're taking pictures or want to be able to read through. But again, these are just based off of years of experience, and these are the biggies when it comes to cheese making. Is everyone set? Can I move on to the next slide? Okay, look here. I will say though, my favorite tip of home cheese making, you can eat your mistakes. So don't worry. Guys, don't sweat it. This is food.